All right, we welcome you to our latest edition of Inside the Orange. We are pleased to be joined today by Veronica Tearney, Director of Strength and Conditioning and Nutrition for the Spirit Program. Veronica, it's great to have you on. Nice to meet you. How are you today?
I'm doing great, and thanks for having me.
All right, so, we like to get to know everybody, first and foremost, just by asking how you ended up at Syracuse. And I know you came here as a student athlete in the mid-'90s, and you've worked your way back here in a full-time capacity. We'll get to the job portion of it, but as a student athlete, how did you end up at Syracuse? How did you end up running track for the Orange?
Sure. So coming out of high school, I was a track and soccer athlete, and at that time, I'd only seen track and field athletes going away on scholarships. So when Syracuse came around, I jumped on the opportunity to leave Canada and expand my horizons track-wise. So that's how I ended up here in '95. I had a few fellow Canadians that I already knew on the team. So for me, it just seemed like a smooth transition to go from where I was in just outside of Toronto to Syracuse.
So you had go ahead, Paul.
I was just going to say mid-'90s, in the 90s, Syracuse, you think football, you think lacrosse, you think basketball. What stuck out about the track and field program to you?
Nothing specific. Well, I mean, the coaches had a good reputation at the time, but I was recruited from a lot of schools down south, and knowing myself, I don't do well in the heat. So the idea of training and running in 70, 80 degree temperatures under the sun just wasn't that appealing to me from an athletic standpoint. So that's what brought me as a track athlete here. And then the bonus of lacrosse, growing up in Canada, lacrosse is big. So knowing they have a strong lacrosse program, and then of course the football draw as well, was just, for me, it might seem unorthodox, but at the time was a no-brainer for me.
Now, you competed at a very high level, placed third in the 100-meter hurdles at the Canadian Olympic Trials in 2000. You're a member of the Canadian national team in the 2001 World University Games in China. You had a lot of success in track and field. What was it like to, give us an idea of how much you trained, what it was like to compete on such a high level?
Sure. So, track was just 24/7. So, at least in my mind. So if I wasn't on the track or in the field, I was just constantly thinking of it. I had dreams of being an Olympian from a very young age. So practicing 5-6 days a week. In high school, it was 3 to 4 days a week for about 2.5 hours a night. And then getting to college, it was 5-6 days a week, anywhere from 3 to 4 hours each session. So it was, and then went away from that, at home in my apartment on campus, watching film, hanging out with other teammates. So it was a combination of just always having it either on my mind or thinking about the future or the next season, the next race.
So we had Corey Parker on last week, who also works with strength and conditioning, and you've got the nutritionist title to go along with strength and conditioning duties when it comes to the Olympic sports. We mentioned the Spirit program as well. Can you give us an idea, what's a normal day for you like, currently at Syracuse University? What's a normal work day for you like?
Sure. So since I balance between strength and conditioning and nutrition side of things, I typically have my teams either first thing in the morning, so 6 a.m., and then 6 p.m. at night. So I usually get in around 5:30, 5:45 in the morning during the regular school year, and get the grab and go, which is our fueling station, get that stocked and ready to go, and then head out to my morning teams. And then once I'm done with them, a typical day for me is running back home, getting the kids to school, and then 8:30, 9 o'clock back in the office. And that's when I start checking in on the fueling station, prepping for my evening teams, and then dealing with anything that comes up throughout the day. So whether it's student athletes coming in the room, in the fueling station, presentation with whatever nutrition question. A lot of times I'm doing team presentations on whatever nutrition topic either the team or the coaches feel that the athletes need, and then just getting ready for the evening teams to come in. And then in between that, you always have a few student athletes who can't make the regular practice time. So then doing extra workouts or makeup workouts with certain individuals. So for me, every day is a little bit different because I never know who's going to walk in my office door needing some sort of nutritional assistance. But for the most part, it's early morning training throughout the day, just catching up and planning and preparing and keeping the fueling station fueled, and then wrapping up the evening with another one or two teams.
Being a former elite athlete yourself, how has that helped you with your job? Because I would imagine that the fact that you lived through this on the other side of things, that I would imagine that helps you, in your job as you're trying to help the next generation of student athletes.
Oh, absolutely. So when you come in with the mindset or have only ever really known the athletic lifestyle, so weekends, long days, long hours, unpredictable practices and whatnot. I understand that side of it. And then being a student athlete, especially on this campus, I knew what it was like to have questions about, my diet and my training, and not necessarily always knowing where to get the answers. So part of my role and part of my passion for working with student athletes at this level is I can relate to them. I've, as you guys have mentioned, I've been on this campus quite a while. So I've seen a lot, I've experienced a lot. I know what it's like to compete at international levels. So I try to bring that experience to be able to relate to the student athletes and kind of insert myself in their shoes when they come to me with an issue or a problem, or to be able to foresee an issue or problem that might come up with the student athletes as well. So I feel like having been an athlete, and especially having been on this campus as an athlete, has kind of given me that perspective and just helps me to relate to the athletes that much better.
You can relate to the athletes. How fun was it for you when Justin Knight was here, a kid from Canada who came in and just basically dominated and did what, how was that for you to watch a kid like that progress?
That was absolutely awesome when he stepped on this campus and just, having success right away. It was fun, obviously, as SU Orange to watch watch a teammate or watch one of our student athletes perform. But having that Canadian connection was just even more exciting, and just the fact that he was so good, but also so humble and just like a great teammate and just a great person in general, it just makes it that much more exciting, and you just want to cheer for him that much more.
All right, so we mentioned that you chose to go here as a student athlete back in the mid to late 90s, and then you stayed here for a little bit in a graduate capacity, went away briefly to Northwest Missouri State, and then you came back. What made you decide to come back and settle back down here in Syracuse?
Sure. So, being down in Missouri, it was most of my family is in the Toronto area, so it was an 18-hour drive to get back and forth home, or a flight to come home. So I missed that aspect of being able to hop in a car on a weekend if I needed to run back home. And then I honestly, when I left Syracuse, I didn't think I was coming back. I gave away all my gear and was just kind of like, thanks for the memories, and just went on my way. But Coach Hicks, out of the blue, called me when I was down in Missouri and told me about an opportunity. And even when he did, I wasn't sure I wanted to come back, but I was in the process of interviewing at a few schools in the Northeast. So I was just like, hey, why not? And I kind of went into the interview. I think that helped me in the interview because I was relaxed and not really knowing if I even wanted the position when I first interviewed. And then when I actually got on campus and, walking the hallways, mind you, it's only a year that I was gone, but just being in the environment again, it was just like, wow, I can come back, and I actually want to come back. And so when the opportunity for this position became official, I was excited. But when I initially left, I thought I was done with the Orange.
All right, Veronica Tearney joining us here on Inside the Orange. Veronica, I think we lost your audio there for a moment. Are you back with us? Can you hear us okay? I don't know if something muted on your end, but I
think we lost her.
Yeah, we can't hear you currently, Veronica. We had you up until about 10 seconds ago, and then we lost
try and figure that out.
Yeah, it is interesting. We've been doing this for a couple of months now, and I love getting to know people that we haven't had a chance to meet yet, or learn about their jobs. That, again, I know that nutritionists are important, strength and conditioning is very important, but I've never really had a chance to find out what they do on a day in and day out basis.
Yeah, it's also funny that how many people are behind the scenes that you don't know about. We sit here every week and we talk to Jim Boeheim, we talk to Adrian Autry, we talk to Dino Babers. There's so many people behind the scenes that keep the train on. We see the conductors, we don't see the guys that are keeping the trains on the track and running on time, and athletes in tip-top shape and getting their schoolwork done. It's a whole process that the average fan doesn't normally get to see.
And I think that we collectively as a community, we come out to the games, we watch. We expect a football player to perform at an optimal capacity, a basketball player. But there's so much that goes into being a student athlete, right? You mentioned academics and nutrition and working out, obviously, and practice in the games. That's just a part of it. It is, as Veronica mentioned, being a high level athlete. It's a 24/7, 365 day a year job. Veronica's back with us now. I think we've figured out the issue. Thank you for hanging in there. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Veronica, you work with the Olympic sports. You work with Spirit Squad, as we discussed. We had Corey Parker on last week, and one of the questions we asked him, I'm curious to get your thoughts. How difficult is it? And I would assume you have to, cater to the specific needs of the athlete. Like a shot putter has different needs than a sprinter, who probably has different needs than somebody on the dance team. How do you go about, catering programs and a nutrition plan for individual athletes? I would imagine it's got to be tough because you're working with so many athletes.
Sure, it can be tough, and it can be challenging because even within a specific sport, you can have different energy needs depending on the position, depending on the individual. So part of it comes just from doing this for over 20 years, and having been an athlete myself, and also having a history of bodybuilding and playing different sports. So I understand it from that perspective. And early on in my career, I literally would write a program and then try it out the night before I would introduce it to a team. And so part of it is just experience and continuing to learn, continuing to go to workshops and webinars and reading what I can. And then at the end of the day, it just comes down to sitting down and looking at the energy needs of the individual athlete, of their position, of their sport, and then building the program, the nutrition-wise and strength and conditioning-wise, building around that. And then the other thing too is taking into account any injuries that are common with the sport, if they're going to be traveling, the environment they're going to be in. So once you get the general basic idea down of the energy needs and requirements of that sport, then you can kind of add in the other things, the other particulars to help build out and fill out the program.
How much do you have to pay attention to sports when you're not doing this in order to set those programs? Like you ran track and field, but like if you're working with the dance team or a hockey team or something that much, how do you know what the injuries that those guys get?
Sure. So a lot of it comes into just before the season even starts, in the off season, sitting down with the coaches, sitting down with the sports medicine staff, and just being like, okay, let's take a look at the past year. What were our prominent injuries? From the coaching perspective, where did they think that they were a little bit weaker in? Where do they feel like they could have improved on? Talking to sports med and just, what kind of injuries did they see? What kind of nagging things? So maybe it wasn't something that kept somebody out for a significant time, but were there commonalities of injuries or ailments popping up that maybe we can address that way? And then it also too, just going to practices, like there were some sports that, football, everybody can watch that on TV. But when I used to work with field hockey and lacrosse and tennis, intuitively, what the sport is. But a lot of times I would go to a practice and be like, wow, I didn't realize they did that particular motion or that particular movement so often or repetitively, or certain positions. I think, you know the general position, but then there's some specialty positions that kind of have different movements or different energy needs that you don't really realize just watching the sport in general. So being at those practices was huge for me, especially for the sports I was less familiar with, to kind of get a better sense of what they actually need, where they actually need to improve on, whether it's endurance, whether it's power, explosiveness, just kind of seeing it from all angles beyond just the in-game situation was really helpful for me.
Veronica, I know that a big part of the job for you must be to try and maximize performance, right, for these student athletes. Is part of your job too, though? Are you hoping to develop healthy habits for these student athletes, that even when they leave Syracuse, these are just lifestyle changes that they will continue to incorporate in their lives, when they're in their professional lives, when their athletic careers are over? Is that part of it?
Oh, absolutely. You're totally speaking to my passion when you mentioned those things. Early on in my career, I was really focused on in-game, being an athlete, total prep that way. And as my career went on, I would hear from student athletes a year, 2 years, 5 years later that, hey, coach, just wanted you to know I'm still using that workout you gave us, or I remember you told us one time, what to eat or what to drink, or, that sort of thing. And they're still following it, whether they're still playing a sport or now they're in their careers and just weekend warriors, what have you. Those kind of things really tickle me. And that's when early on in my career, I realized, like, wow, it's not just when they're on this campus, they're actually listening and utilizing this information out in the real world, so to speak. So over the years, especially after becoming a mom and being further away from being an athlete myself, I realized that, there's so many skills that you learn as a student athlete that carry you long term, but then there's also things that maybe you don't really realize as an athlete that are important for the long term. So I really try to stress that with the student athletes, that I want to see them excel and help enhance and support everything they're doing as a student athlete. But at the end of the day, if somebody walks away not having skills to help them long term in their life, so that when they're done being an athlete, they're still healthy enough to walk around and enjoy their life, or they have the skills to train themselves, keep themselves healthy, and also feed themselves the right way, then I've kind of done a disservice in that respect.
All right, I asked this to Corey last week. I'll ask you, who is the one athlete that walked in the door as a freshman to the time they got to be a senior is the biggest success story for you? And Corey even added something out, so I'll ask you this too. Who is the freakish athlete from the moment you walked in? They walked in the door as a freshman when you saw them?
Oh my gosh, that I needed some time to work on that. There have been so many athletes over the years that from beginning to end, there was a great transition, but more so sticks out when they're seniors and they're walking away, and I'm just like Laura Herf on field hockey. Like she was just jacked. She was a beast. She was amazing, and just her work ethic really stood out. And so I don't remember when she came in as a freshman. I can't imagine that she was that far off. But when she left, she was just pure athlete, but also had the mentality and toughness, and was also very grateful and very humble as well. So she was one that stands out in my mind. Volleyball wise, another one, Casey, believe her name, Casey McTavish. She was just, no matter what I threw at her, she could do it all. And she was a leader in all the workouts, and just like, I can never seem to put together the workout that would really knock her down, so to speak, and really tire her out. So those are two that really stand out right away in my mind. But there's been so many over the years, and that's another thing I love I live for is that aha moment, because you can tell them 10 times, 100 times, here's what you should eat, here's the lifestyle things that you should be following, getting sleep, blah blah blah. But it's not until they have that aha moment for themselves and they start to embrace it and utilize it. When you see that and you see the results of that, that's what makes me happy. That's what makes me smile. And a lot of times that'll happen. It'll be happening, usually around this time of year when people start to come back, and over the summer they just, something clicked for them and they started making changes. And those are the types of stories that I live for.
All right, we asked you about the education piece of this for you. Can you discuss your partnership with Wegmans and how they're kind of assisting in the education and the health benefits for student athletes when it comes to nutrition?
Sure. The partnership with Wegmans has been huge. As recent as yesterday, we had one of the chefs come in and do a session with our field hockey team on meal prep and just the importance of eating a variety of fresh fruits and vegetables daily, and then also addressing the issue of food waste and how when you're cooking and you're prepping a recipe, a lot of times you have some of the ingredients left over, and just ways that you can utilize those ingredients and put into another meal. But the partnership in general has been great because Wegmans obviously provides the food aspect when you go grocery shopping, but they have such a wide array of information on their websites and then their apps on everything from cooking to nutrition information to the labels that they specifically and icons that they specifically have on their products, kind of guiding people and letting them know whether it's gluten-free or organic, that type of thing. They just have such a wealth of knowledge. So that partnership has been huge, and it's kind of really sparked a lot of interest among the student athletes to really cook and really think about not just what they grocery shop for, but how they shop for it, and just realizing that it's not just as simple as going to the grocery store and buying food, but there's a lot behind it, from reading the nutrition labels and just understanding what they need as an athlete to perform their best. So that partnership with Wegmans has been huge in reinforcing that and also expanding on it as well.
You work with a Spirit Squad. Maybe you could explain to us, for the layperson, I see them at every basketball game, every football game, doing things that the average human can't do. What level of athlete are they compared to those in Olympic sports?
They are right up there. You're talking about student athletes who, have been recruited at other schools to perform Spirit as well. So although they might not get the same attention as some of our other sports, they are athletes through and through, and they train hard, and they're doing strength sessions, they're doing conditioning sessions, they're doing their own training. So they are absolutely right up there with any other athlete in any sport. And you would be surprised at some of the weights that especially some of these ladies are putting up in the weight room. They really impressed me when I'm like, hey, in my peak back in my day, you might have been run for my money with some of those girls. So they really are impressive athletes, and the coaching staff has done a tremendous job of really bringing in some high quality Spirit team members.
Veronica, what's the best part of your job? What's your favorite part?
My favorite part, and I kind of mentioned it before, was when things click, when there's that aha moment that student athletes realize that it's not just about lifting weights, it's not just about playing their sport, it's not just about fueling so they can get through the next workout, that all of these things come together. It's getting enough sleep, it's the social interaction with your teammates, it's the responsibility and the privilege of being on a team. When all of that comes together and they realize that these aren't just separate units, that each of these things affects the other, I love that, because that's when people truly embrace who they are and where they are and their position on the team and on this campus. And they want to learn more. They want to eat better. They want to come to training sessions and are ready to go instead of just kind of dragging in the door, just trying to get through the next couple hours.
Anything else, Veronica, that you want to get across to our listeners or viewers about your job, about Syracuse University, about your time there? Anything else we didn't touch on that you want to leave us with?
I would say, like, the one thing when I came as a freshman, it was repeated to me over and over that once you get here, it's like a family. And no matter what you want to do, or if you don't know what you want to do, ask questions, make it be known that you're interested in this particular area or you're trying to achieve this specific goal. And the Orange family comes together and tries to make that happen. And that's something I've kind of carried through my career. I try to tell my student athletes that I'm here working with nutrition, I'm here working in the weight room, but I want to see them grow and develop and succeed as people. And so if you have a question, if you're uncertain about anything, the Orange family is ready and here to help you. And so I love being a part of that aspect of not just Syracuse athletics, but the Syracuse community in general.
Well said, Veronica. We enjoyed this. Thanks so much for coming on. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.
You know, I know the fall sports teams are already working out, so things are going to get busy for you again. Best of luck, continued success to you, and hopefully we can talk again down the road.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, Veronica Tearney, our latest interview on Inside the Orange.
Couple weeks off now, Steve. Vacation in the fair.
That's right.
And then we'll
take
get
a couple
right
weeks
back
off
at
from
it.
this, but we'll stay tuned for another Inside the Orange in the not too distant future. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching, everybody.